China, the land stretching from the snow-capped Tian Shan Mountains to the plains of the Yangtze River, is one of the oldest and most complex civilizations in the world. More than 5,000 years of history have created a vast tapestry, where each dynasty is a brilliant fragment, yet hides countless shadows. Beneath the pages praising glory and power, there remain mysteries that have never been deciphered. Silent stories buried under the dust of time, where truth and legend intertwine to the point of indistinction. Ancient historians once believed that history was a linear flow, where everything was carefully recorded. Yet the deeper we dig, the clearer it becomes that Chinese history was not only written in ink, but also in blood, silence, and fear. Court historians once had to take sides, erase names to survive, and turn defeat into triumph. Thus, what remains is not mere omission, but deliberate secrecy. Voids of truth crafted by power itself to conceal its own face. Today, as archaeology and modern science become new keys, every stroke of the shovel and every measurement unveils mysteries thought to be forever buried. Chinese and international researchers have discovered mummies preserved for more than 2,000 years, gigantic bronze statues of a forgotten civilization, and traces of unusual mercury around the tomb of Qin Shi Huang. Each discovery serves as a reminder: history never dies, it merely hides for a time. Among these countless tales, 5 great mysteries stand out as mirrors reflecting the essence of power and human belief. The mummy of Xinjue, the noble lady of the Han Dynasty who defied decay; the Sanqingdui civilization, the lost child of ancient China; the tomb of Qin Shi Huang, a colossal monument containing a sea of mercury that no one dares to open; the death and disappearance of Emperor Jianwen; and finally, the chilling intrigues of the Qing imperial harem, where a single word could kill faster than a blade. These 5 enigmas not only awaken curiosity but compel us to view history through a human lens: the longing for immortality, the fear of oblivion, and the boundless thirst for power. For what keeps them alive is not mystery itself, but the raw emotions hidden within. Our journey begins in the depths of the earth, the tomb in Hunan, where the body of a Han Dynasty woman remains intact after more than 2 millennia. This, the first mystery, and the doorway into the search for the 5 true secrets of Chinese history. In the summer of 1971, in the suburbs of Changsha, Hunan province, a group of workers digging an air raid shelter discovered a strange layer of soil, harder and darker than usual. When they reported it to the archaeological authorities, no one could have imagined that beneath that earth lay a secret that would astonish the world. The body of a woman who had been dead for more than 2,000 years, yet her corpse remained intact. Her skin soft, her joints flexible, even traces of blood still visible in her veins. This woman was Xinjue, wife of Li Kang, Marquis of Dai at Mawangdui, a powerful noble of the Western Han Dynasty. The excavation not only transformed humanity's understanding of mummification, but also opened a new chapter in ancient Chinese burial science, medicine, and belief. Xinjue's tomb lay more than 16 meters underground, surrounded by layers of compacted earth, charcoal, and white kaolin clay. When archaeologists opened the tomb, they entered another world, silent, cold, as though time itself had stopped. In the large burial chamber, 4 nested wooden coffins fit tightly together like matryoshka dolls. The outermost layer was lacquered black. Inside were smaller wooden boxes, painted red, inlaid with jade, and decorated with swirling cloud motifs, symbols of immortality. When the final lid was lifted, a strange scent filled the air, a blend of resin, perfume, and time. Under the dim oil lamps, the woman's body appeared, her face slightly swollen, her pale skin still elastic, lips gently closed as if asleep. No one could believe that before them lay a woman who had died during the Han Dynasty, around 163 years before Christ. The tomb's structure was an engineering marvel. The outer layers of charcoal and clay not only prevented moisture, but also created a naturally antiseptic environment. The charcoal absorbed humidity, the clay insulated, together forming a perfect protective shell. The 4 coffins were sealed with lacquer, a substance with natural antibacterial properties. Every crevice was filled with a mixture of clay and resin. When archaeologists inserted probes, they found nearly 200 liters of yellow-brown liquid inside the coffin, slightly acidic, containing salt, magnesium, and organic compounds. It was hypothesized that this solution acted as a preservative medium, preventing bacterial intrusion and slowing decomposition. There were no traces of Egyptian-style embalming, no resin, no natron salt, no organ removal. Everything was preserved intact, as though nature and human craft had conspired to preserve this woman's life. A medical examination followed immediately after excavation. Upon dissection, doctors were astonished. Every internal organ was intact. The lungs slightly elastic, the heart, liver, and kidneys clearly defined, the blood vessels structurally preserved. In the veins remained traces of type A blood. Under the microscope, the cells retained their full structure. Her stomach contained melon seeds, proving she had eaten fruit shortly before death, dying only a few hours after her last meal. Analyses revealed that Xinjue suffered from chronic diseases, arteriosclerosis, herniated discs, gallstones, fatty liver, and severe cardiovascular problems. She likely died of a sudden heart attack, evidence of the luxurious sedentary lifestyle of Han aristocrats. Beside the coffin, archaeologists discovered more than 3,000 artifacts, a perfect summary of Western Han aristocratic life. There was a silk robe weighing only 49 grams, as smooth as mist. Hundreds of exquisite lacquerware items, bowls, cosmetic boxes, hairpins, musical instruments, medical tools, dining utensils, even a detailed menu list. The tomb contained over 100 varieties of food: meat, fish, fruit, wine, all arranged according to feng shui principles. The ancients believed the soul continued to eat and drink in the afterlife, so the richer the offerings, the more prosperous the departed. The tomb also contained figurines of servants, dogs, birds, and kitchen models, representing the wish to live fully even beyond death. Most remarkable of all, draped over the coffin was a nearly 3-meter-long T-shaped silk banner depicting the Han cosmological vision. The top section represented heaven, where Nuwa, Houyi, and celestial gods resided. The middle showed the mortal realm, the noble lady leaning on her staff, her soul ascending under divine escort. The bottom illustrated the underworld, serpents, beasts, and the river of death. This silk banner was not mere decoration. It was a soul map guiding the spirit from body to eternity, proof of faith in life after death. The Han believed humans had two souls, the Hun, spirit, rising to heaven, and the Po, vital essence, remaining on earth. Death, therefore, was not an end but a transition, and elaborate burial rituals were their way of helping loved ones live on beyond the grave. Yet why was Xinzue's body uniquely preserved, while other aristocratic tombs of the same era had decayed completely? The question remains unsolved. Some scientists suggest that the geological conditions of Hunan, humid yet stable, combined with the airtight construction of the 4 coffins, created a perfect anaerobic environment. Others argue the coffin liquid was an artificial preservative, specially formulated from medicinal herbs or minerals. A bolder hypothesis proposes it was a chance effect, a perfect coincidence of materials, temperature, humidity, and geology that prevented decomposition. Regardless of theory, the phenomenon has never been reproduced under modern conditions, making Xinjue's body a singular biological mystery in human history. Archaeologically, the Muangdui discovery is an invaluable treasure. It provides clear evidence of Western Han craftsmanship, artistry, and religious thought. The tomb's layout reflects strict feng shui principles: precise southeast to northwest alignment, coffin placement, compressed soil layers, and gate orientation, all adhering to the doctrine of unity between heaven and humanity. This demonstrates the practical application of yin-yang and 5 elements philosophy. Moreover, the silk manuscripts found within, especially the Muangdui medical texts, contain extensive medical, astrological, and wellness knowledge, detailing over 50 medicinal prescriptions. Thanks to these, modern scholars gained a comprehensive view of ancient Chinese medicine and elite life more than 2 millennia ago. From a sociological perspective, Xinjue's death and burial reflect the power hierarchy of her time. As a marquise's wife, she was entitled to a dual-person tomb, comparable in scale to a feudal king's. Her funeral lasted weeks, attended by hundreds of servants, not only a display of family reverence, but also a political statement affirming the Li clan's dominance in Changsha. Thus, the tomb's perfection was not merely a technical triumph, but a symbol of power and prestige. In the 21st century, As imaging and chemical analysis technologies advanced, scientists continued exploring Xinjui's enigma. Results showed her mummy contained remarkably preserved DNA, enabling partial reconstruction of early Han morphology. Soft tissues were studied for ancient pathology, opening new directions in forensic medicine. Modern museums, such as the Hunan Museum, have digitally reconstructed her face in 3 dimensions: round, serene, with slightly slanted eyes reflecting the classical beauty of a southern noblewoman. Yet beyond all science, what haunts observers most is the feeling when standing before her body. In the cold, dim light, Xinjue seems merely asleep, tranquil amid the disappearance of 2,000 years of history. Perhaps her immortality is time's silent message, that while people may be forgotten and dynasties may fall, humanity's desire to defy death never ceases. From the depths of Hunan, Xinjui's story opens the first gateway in our exploration of China's 5 great mysteries. It tells not only of a preserved body, but of a civilization that believed it could conquer time itself through ritual, knowledge, and faith. As the dust of excavation settles, we leave Mawangdui and turn westward to Sichuan, where another mystery awaits. The Songqingdui civilization, a forgotten world of bulging-eyed bronze figures, where the ancient Chinese may have forged an entirely separate universe alongside official history. Amid the fertile Sichuan plain, where the Min River and the Jialing River meander like green silk ribbons, there exists a mystery that has forced the world's archaeologists to change how they view Chinese history, the Songqingdui civilization. It is not the name of a dynasty recorded in official histories, nor does it appear in any chronicle of the Central Plains court. It is known through broken bronze fragments, giant human statues, and divine masks with bulging eyes that seem to gaze through time, all found by chance, yet opening up an entire world forgotten for more than 3 millennia. Everything began in the year 1929, when a farmer in Sangxing Village, Guanghan County, while digging an irrigation canal, discovered a cache of unusual jade and bronze objects. These items resembled no artifacts ever seen in China. There was a human mask with large ears, round eyes, and a wide mouth. There were human statues nearly 3 meters tall, standing upright with arms outstretched as if holding a sacred object. When archaeological specialists arrived, they realized these were not Han, nor Zhou or Qin, but much older, dating to approximately 1,200–1,000 years before Christ. From then on, the name Sanqingdui, meaning 3 mounds, was born, marking one of the greatest archaeological discoveries of the 20th century. After the first discovery, large-scale excavations were carried out in the 1980s. 2 enormous sacrificial pits were uncovered, containing thousands of objects made of bronze, gold, jade, ivory, and pottery. The scene inside the pits astonished everyone. Human and animal figures, masks, wine vessels, and weapons, all broken, burned, then deliberately buried. It was neither a cemetery nor a hoard hastily hidden, but seemed to be a sacrificial ritual on an unprecedented scale. Experts believe the Sanqingdui people conducted a sealing ritual, smashing and entering sacred objects to return them to the gods. What is strange is that Sanqingdui art is entirely different from the contemporaneous art of the Central Plains. While the Shang and Henan favored bronze bells, vessels, drums, and animal motifs, Sanqingdui turned toward divine symbols. Gigantic human faces with bulging eyes, high noses, and pointed ears. Some masks even bearing features unlike East Asians. Certain statues have dragon heads, beastly mouths, and human bodies, evoking Western mythologies. Many scholars once suspected this was not a Chinese civilization at all, but the remnant of an external tribe. However, stratigraphic evidence and the composition of the bronzes clearly confirm that Sanqingdui developed independently in the Sichuan Basin, parallel to the Shang in the Central Plains, meaning ancient China did not have only a single civilizational center. One of the most impressive artifacts is a human statue 2.62 meters tall, cast in solid bronze, an engineering feat far ahead of its time. The figure's face is serene, with large eyes and a high nose. Both hands are raised as if holding a sacred object, perhaps jade or a ritual wine vessel. The posture is perfectly upright, the lower body columnar, and the entire statue is cast as one piece, proving Sanqingdui's metallurgy reached a superb level. Nearby is a colossal divine mask, more than 1.3 meters long, with eyes protruding 20 centimeters from the face, fierce yet majestic. Both the statue and mask are finely carved, showing that the Sangxingdui people had a clear concept of power and divinity. They worshipped eye gods, capable of observing both the celestial and the human realms. What further confounds researchers is the sudden disappearance of this civilization. After 1,000 years before Christ, Sangxingdui vanishes entirely from history, leaving behind sealed sacrificial pits and no trace of successor settlements. There are no signs of war, no invasion. Everything stops as if they departed together. The first hypothesis suggests a massive earthquake altered the course of the Min River, cutting off the water supply and forcing migration. Some geologists have found traces of ancient river shifts in the area, supporting this hypothesis. Another proposes that Sangxingdui merged with the Jinsha culture, which developed around Chengdu a few centuries later, meaning they did not disappear, only transformed into another form. Yet some believe this was an apocalyptic ritual. The people voluntarily buried all sacred objects to close an era. For modern people, Sangxingdui is not only an archaeological question, but a mirror reflecting a new view of China. For centuries, it was believed that Huaxia civilization was the sole center and all other peoples were barbarians. But Sangxingdui proves the opposite. Within this very land once existed multiple civilizational centers developing in parallel, diverse, independent, and equal. This shakes the notion of a single China, while revealing that Chinese history may be far richer and more complex than official histories record. In recent years, new excavations at Sangxingdui have continued to yield stunning discoveries. In the year 2021, 6 new sacrificial pits were found, containing thousands of exquisite artifacts: dragon-shaped bronze vessels, small gold statues, ivory tusks, and jade engraved with deities. Notably, a solid gold mask weighing more than 280 grams, considered the oldest gold artifact in China, shocked the global archaeological community. These objects possess not only artistic value, but also traces of cultural exchange. Many analyses show Sangxingdui bronzes have a higher tin content than those of the Central Plains, indicating they had their own ore sources or traded with regions in Southeast Asia, even South Asia. This shows the Sangxingdui people were not isolated, but a dynamic civilization that connected with the outside world earlier than we imagined. Modern archaeologists also pay attention to their social organization. Based on the scale of the pits and the abundance of gold and bronze, many scholars infer that Sangxingdui was a theocratic kingdom, where power was concentrated in the hands of priests and the king, seen as the embodiment of the eye god. Every sacrificial act, from burning bronzes to burying jade and ivory, was a way to recharge the gods, ensuring harvests and social order. Such a polity was both religious and absolute, and that very extreme concentration of power may have caused the kingdom's collapse when natural disasters or environmental changes occurred. Today, the Sangxingdui Museum in Guanghan has been built as a modern archaeological sanctuary. Entering it, one feels confronted with an extraterrestrial civilization. Dazzling golden faces, metallic eyes staring intently, bronze arms raised like greetings from the past. Each artifact bears an indescribable mystique, at once human and superhuman. Artists, archaeologists, and theologians all find in Sangxingdui an intersection of myth and reality, of power and faith. Yet no matter how much more is excavated, the core questions remain unanswered. Who created Sangxingdui? Where did they come from, and why did they disappear? No writing has been found, no stelae, no records. This civilization seems to have left no voice, only a gaze, the gigantic bulging eyes of the gods as if watching posterity. It is precisely this absolute silence that makes Sangxingdui one of the greatest mysteries in Asian history. If the mummy of Xinjui is evidence of humanity's longing for immortality, then Sangxingdui is a symbol of the longing to touch the divine, the belief that there is a metaphysical world parallel to the mundane. These two mysteries are linked. One lies in the earth, the other shrouded in legendary mist, together telling of ancient people, those who dared to dream of eternity. And from Sangxingdui's disappearance, we understand that all power and all belief, no matter how glorious, can be buried by time. Yet what they left, those immortal bronze eyes, will forever watch humankind, reminding us that the past has never truly vanished. From Sanxingdui's ashes, the journey of discovery leads us back to the center of power in ancient China, where an emperor, ambitious to build an eternal empire, buried himself within a miniature realm underground. There, amid rivers of mercury and an immobile terracotta army, lies another mystery: the mausoleum of Qin Shi Huang, where humans turned the dream of immortality into an empire of the dead. In the year 221 before Christ, when 6 vassal states had one by one submitted, Qin Shi Huang, birth name Ying Zheng, officially unified China after hundreds of years of war. He was the first emperor, the one who laid the foundation for a centralized Chinese empire, and at the same time a symbol of boundless ambition, to rule forever over the entire land and even over death. Because of that longing, he built the mausoleum of Qin Shi Huang, a colossal underground project likened to a kingdom of the dead, where power, fear, and faith blended into a mystery that has lasted for more than 2,000 years. According to the historian Sima Qian, in the records of the Grand Historian, Annals of the First Emperor of Qin, construction of the tomb began immediately after he ascended the throne of Qin, when he was only 13 years old. Hundreds of thousands of craftsmen, soldiers, and slaves were mobilized over 38 years to build an enormous mausoleum at the foot of Mount Li, near the city of Hamdung, now part of Xi'an, Shanxi. The goal of this project was not merely a resting place, but a miniature model of the realm, where the emperor would continue to rule in the world beyond. The artificial hill, 76 meters high today, is only the tiny visible part. Beneath it lies a gigantic maze that has never been opened. Ancient records describe the tomb as a miniature realm: palace ceilings inlaid with pearls symbolizing the stars, floors paved with silver representing rivers and seas, and especially a river of mercury flowing around the emperor's coffin, modeling the Yangtze and the Yellow River. These descriptions were once considered legend until modern archaeology showed they might be true. When a Chinese survey team measured mercury levels around the tomb, they found concentrations of Hg hundreds of times higher than natural levels, clearly concentrated at the center, the place believed to be the underground palace. This data revived Sima Qian's words: using mercury to make rivers and seas with mechanisms that kept the waters flowing without end. Why mercury? To the ancient Chinese, mercury was regarded as an elixir of immortality. Taoist adepts in the Warring States and early Qin eras believed this metal contained the vital breath of heaven and earth, able to resist aging and grant eternal life. The first emperor was obsessed with immortality, repeatedly dispatching envoys across the seas in search of the fairy isles of Penglai. He drank medicines containing cinnabar, mercuric sulfide, in hopes of prolonging his life, but that very immortal elixir gradually poisoned him, leading to his death in the year 210 before Christ at only 49 years old. The irony is that while he died from mercury, his tomb was sealed with mercury itself, like history's own sarcasm. But the story does not stop at the medical aspect. Technically, the use of mercury in the tomb shows that Qin chemistry and mechanics were extraordinarily advanced. To create flowing rivers, artisans may have arranged an underground system: bronze pipes to conduct mercury, reservoirs, wheels, and mechanisms powered by water or heat. If Sima Qian's description is accurate, then the Qin mausoleum was not only a tomb but a machine symbolizing eternal power, an artificial universe operating perpetually around the emperor's bier. Another hypothesis holds that the Mercury River served to create an antiseptic environment and deter tomb robbers. Since mercury vapor is extremely toxic, any intruder would be poisoned at once. Many scholars judge that Qin Shi Huang built his tomb not simply out of superstition, but as political strategy. In the Qin worldview, death was the continuation of power. Having unified the realm and life, he must also unify the underworld and death. The mausoleum was a second court, where thousands of terracotta soldiers kept guard, and officials, artisans, and palace women all had to serve. Legend says that upon completion, all the laborers were killed to keep the secret. Hundreds of palace women were buried alive to be eternal attendants. The records confirm the dead within the tomb were beyond counting. This was proof of absolute power. To his final breath, the king would not allow anyone to cross death alone. The Terracotta Army, discovered in the year 1974, is only the outer precinct of the tomb. More than 8,000 clay warriors, horses, war chariots, and real weapons of tin-plated bronze are arrayed as if ready for battle. Every face is different, no two alike, as though each individual once existed. They are not mere works of art, but emblems of military power, an immortal legion protecting the emperor. If the outside is so magnificent, how terrifying must the inner palace be? That is a question no one has dared to answer, for the Chinese government has to this day not permitted the opening of the tomb, out of concern that preservation technology is not yet safe enough. Though unexcavated, radar and geophysical surveys have revealed a network of chambers covering tens of thousands of square meters, divided into a central palace, treasure stores, ritual rooms, and armories. Some areas show strong metallic reflections, possibly gold, bronze, or congealed mercury. Scientists must work under harsh conditions. Soil mercury levels are so high that long exposure can cause poisoning. All this confirms that the legend of a Sea of Mercury is by no means fictional. From a symbolic perspective, the Sea of Mercury is not only a display of power, but also a metaphor for the ambition to control nature. Mercury is the only metal that is liquid, always moving, reflecting light, like time and life, impossible to grasp. By using it to build rivers and seas underground, Qin Shi Huang froze time, turning the moment of supreme power into eternity. Yet, that very ambition was also a tragedy. He died young, and the Qin dynasty collapsed only 15 years later. The great mausoleum became the grave of a buried dream of immortality. The mystery of the Qin tomb also lies in the decision not to excavate. Since the 1980s, Chinese archaeologists have identified the exact location of the burial chamber, but have resolutely refused to open it. The reason is not only technical. Once opened, oxidation would destroy lacquer paintings and silk, and could trigger an environmental disaster due to mercury vapor. They choose to leave it, let the past sleep. Paradoxically, that very silence has made the Qin tomb an eternal mystery, guarded by a mix of respect and fear. Today, when visitors stand on the plain of Xi'an, gazing at thousands of terracotta warriors under soft yellow light, few realize they have seen only the smallest fraction of the underground empire. Beneath the hill of Mount Li, a world may still exist, where a mercury river glitters, where the emperor eternally sits upon his throne, and where a mute army keeps watch over his 1,000-year sleep. Every wisp of mercury vapor seeping from the earth is a reminder. No power, however great, can defeat death, and the ambition for immortality always wears the shape of tragedy. If the mummy of Xinjui is humanity's temporary victory over time, if Sangxingdui is the emblem of a vanished civilization, then the mausoleum of Qin Shi Huang is proof of the immortality of power buried in silence. For 2,000 years, no one has dared open that door, not only for fear of poison, but for a deeper fear, that when light shines in, the first emperor's dream of eternal life will dissolve, leaving before our eyes only a corpse amid a sea of mercury. And as the mists over Mount Li gradually clear, the story of history leads us away from the emperor's mausoleum to another era, where power no longer lay in the hands of kings, but shifted into the deep inner quarters of the Ming court. There, a young emperor vanished without a trace, opening a new mystery: the Emperor Jianwen and the silent war in the shadows of the palace. When the Ming dynasty had just been founded, China seemed to have regained stability after many centuries of turmoil. The founding emperor Zhu Yuanzhang, a poor monk who rose in rebellion and established a new dynasty, ruled for more than 30 years, erecting a strict system of officials, laws, and rituals. But along with power, he also sowed the seeds of suspicion. Fearing that his descendants would struggle for the throne, Zhu Yuanzhang divided lands for his princes as imperial kinsmen, granting them the right to raise their own armies to guard the frontiers, both protecting and monitoring one another. That very arrangement, intended to secure the realm, became the fuse for one of the most tragic coups in Chinese history, the Jingnan Incident, bound to the unsolved disappearance of the Emperor Jianwen. In the year 1398, Zhu Yuanzhang passed away. The crown prince Zhu Biao had died earlier, so the throne was passed to his grandson Zhu Yunwen, only 21 years old, who ascended under the reign title Jianwen. He was a learned and benevolent emperor, supported by many Confucian scholars who hoped the Ming court would enter a phase of civil governance after the blood and iron founding era. However, Jianwen's first policy inadvertently touched a colossal power. He sought to reduce the authority of the imperial kinsmen, among whom the most dangerous was Zhou Di, the fourth son of Zhu Yuanzhang, stationed in Beiping, present-day Beijing, commanding hundreds of thousands of elite troops. History began to shift in silence. In the year 1399, Jianwen launched the Abolish the Princedoms plan, meaning the recall of military powers from the imperial relatives. A series of princes were demoted, summoned to the capital, or mysteriously died. Understanding his turn was coming, Zhu Di feigned madness to avoid disaster and quietly gathered forces. When the court dispatched troops to monitor him, he struck back unexpectedly, beginning a 3-year war known as the Jingnan Campaign, literally pacifying disorder, but in essence a civil war for the throne. Two forces confronted each other. To the south stood the Jianwen court, holding legitimacy. To the north stood Zhu Di, famed as the Prince of Yongle, seasoned in battle. Cunningly, Zhu Di proclaimed, "Support the rightful order and eliminate traitors," taking the banner of rescuing the emperor from wicked ministers, turning himself into a defender of orthodoxy to legitimize his rebellion. His first proclamations were crafted with skill, firm yet full of moral reasoning, causing many generals to hesitate to oppose him. The war raged from the year 1399 to 1402. Beijing, Shandong, and Jiangsu fell in succession to Zhu Di. Though numerous, Jianwen's forces lacked experience. The court was in turmoil, and many generals deserted or betrayed him. Meanwhile, Zhu Di, notorious for brutality yet decisive, personally led troops into battle each time, riding through showers of arrows. Legend says that in one battle at Danyang, he was wounded in the forehead, blood running down his face, yet he continued to order the charge, shattering the enemy. That ferocity made many believe that heaven's mandate had moved north. In the capital Nanjing, Jianwen fell into desperation. Many advisors urged him to withdraw to Jiangnan to reorganize, but he refused, unwilling to burden the people further. On July 13th of the year, 1402, Zhu Di's army broke through Nanjing's gates. The Zide Palace blazed fiercely. When the flames died, 3 charred bodies were found, said to be those of the emperor, empress, and their son. Zhu Di declared that Jianwen had perished in the conflagration, then swiftly took the throne under the reign title Yongle, becoming one of the most powerful Ming emperors. Yet from the start, something was amiss. The emperor's body was never verified. No one saw it with their own eyes. There was no grand state funeral, and no clear tomb. Rumors began to spread. Jianwen had not died. Some said he shaved his head, disguised himself as a monk, and fled south. Others claimed he hid in Vietnam, even crossed the sea to Japan. Certain old records note that after his accession, Zhu Di repeatedly sent secret envoys to search for his missing nephew. Once, at the Yunnan frontier, a haggard monk was seized who claimed to be the former king. No one knows his fate, but the chronicles say that Zhu Di then changed countenance and sighed, ordering that no further questioning be made. This only deepened suspicion. Might Jianwen still have been alive? From a political perspective, Jianwen's disappearance was a bloody turning point. Zhu Di, now the Yongle emperor, began erasing every trace of the Jianwen reign. He burned edicts, destroyed documents, and arrested numerous former officials. Many loyal to the young emperor were tortured and executed, their 3 clans exterminated. Anyone who had written of or mentioned Jianwen was forbidden. In the official histories, his name is recorded in only a few lines. Perished by self-immolation amid the fires, left no heir. History was rewritten, and the loser was erased from the nation's memory. Yet history is never entirely silent. Among the people, the image of the missing king became a symbol of justice buried alive. Anecdotes tell that years later in the south, someone saw an elderly monk with white hair and a bent back, softly chanting before a Buddha image, his eyes filled with sorrow. People whispered that this was Jianwen, once the youngest emperor of the Ming, now living as a recluse, bearing the pain of betrayal by his own blood. That tale spread for hundreds of years, becoming the subject of dozens of plays, novels, and unofficial records. For modern scholars, the Jianwen case is a profound lesson about the covert struggles of feudal politics. Under the cloak of the moral duty to assist the court, Zhou Di was in truth a usurper. The Jingnan War not only changed the throne, but shaped the Ming's trajectory, from south to north, from civil governance to martial rule. The subsequent Yongle era achieved many feats, building the Forbidden City, dispatching Zheng He on voyages, but all were erected upon the ashes of the Jianwen court. What renders the Jianwen story tragic is its symbolism. A young emperor, well-educated and benevolent, seeking to reform the country through Confucian principles, destroyed by a kinsman, the very man entrusted by his forebears to guard the frontier. It is the eternal clash between ideals and power. History may praise the victor, but the people's hearts incline toward the defeated, the one who vanished, yet lives on in memory across generations. Today, though no definitive evidence exists, many historians continue to trace the missing emperor's footprints. Some sites in Yunnan, Guangxi, and even in Vietnam preserve legends of a northern monk fluent in classical Chinese, who once told stories of the Ming court. These hypotheses may never be proven, but precisely for that reason, they create the inexhaustible allure of the Jianwen mystery. When the flames of Nanjing's palace died, they did not only consume a reign, but burned away the honest memory of history. In those embers, the silhouette of the young emperor still flickers. No one knows whether he died, or watches the world with weary eyes. And like every other mystery in Chinese history, his silence is the loudest voice, the voice of the loser who refuses to disappear. From that upheaval, our journey of discovery leaves the battlefield of power and enters another place, the Qing imperial harem, where power is softer, quieter, yet no less ruthless. Where women like Empress Dowager Cixi used a smile to kill and turned the throne into a blood-stained chessboard. After the bloody throne struggles of the Ming era, Chinese history entered its final dynasty, the Qing, where power no longer rested entirely in the hands of emperors, but was increasingly dominated by cold palace intrigues. In the shadows of the Forbidden City, amid gilded corridors and the clatter of wooden clogs on stone floors, emerged a woman who made the entire court tremble, Empress Dowager Cixi, the woman called the Dragon Behind the Curtain. From an obscure concubine, she rose to seize full control of the empire, manipulating the throne for nearly half a century, leaving behind a trail of mysteries, from the death of Emperor Guangxu to rumors that her body did not decay even after 20 years. Cixi's real name was Yehenara, a Manchu woman who entered the palace in the year 1851 at 16 years old, becoming a consort of Emperor Xianfeng. In the harem, where hundreds of concubines vied for favor like warriors in a silent battlefield, Cixi stood out not for beauty, but for intelligence, composure, and keen observation. She understood that in the palace, power did not come from appearance, but from mastering emotion and information. Through flattery, attentiveness, and subtle suggestion, she gradually gained Xianfeng's trust and bore him a son, Zaichen, who would later become the Tongji emperor. Bearing a male heir became the key to her path of domination. In the year 1861, Emperor Xianfeng died in the heat of Jehol, leaving a decree naming 8 regents to govern on behalf of the young heir. But Cixi, together with Empress Dowager Xian, Xianfeng's principal consort, secretly allied with loyal princes and launched the Xinyu coup, overturning the situation. When news of Xianfeng's death reached Beijing, the 8 regents preparing to assume power were suddenly arrested. Within days, they were executed, and power fell entirely into the hands of the 2 empresses dowager, especially Cixi, who was far more intelligent and decisive. Thus began her era of ruling from behind the curtain, when she nominally acted as regent, but in reality commanded the entire government. Cixi understood the political game better than anyone. In front of officials, she maintained the image of the mother of the nation, gentle and dignified. But behind the curtain was a cold mind that knew precisely when to seize and when to release control. She manipulated emperors like pieces on a chessboard. When her son, the Tongji emperor, took the throne, she ruled in his stead. When he died young, she installed her nephew Guangxu, continuing to wield actual power. Those who opposed her were removed deftly, not by executions, but by well-worded decrees, vague accusations of rebellion, or defying heaven's will. The court under her became a stage, where every word was weighed and every smile could be a snare. What made Cixi exceptional was not only ruthlessness, but mastery of emotion and image. She knew how to use luxury as a political tool, building the Hall of Benevolent Tranquility, restoring the Summer Palace, and hosting lavish banquets to prove that the Celestial Empire still flourished, even when the treasury was empty. When photography reached China, she was the first in the court to use it for political image building, commissioning hundreds of portraits in imperial robes amid staged backdrops, her gaze cool and her smile faintly imperious. These photographs circulated among Western aristocrats, who viewed her with both admiration and unease. The woman, more powerful than the emperor himself. But beneath the splendor lay undercurrents of political struggle. When Emperor Guangxu came of age and sought to reform the nation along Western lines, Cixi saw it as a threat. In the year 1898, the 100 Days Reform erupted, led by Guangxu and young intellectuals like Kang Youwei and Liang Qichao to modernize the state. Yet after only 103 days, Cixi struck. She imprisoned Guangxu, executed 6 reformers, and declared herself retired from regency, though in truth it was a palace coup. From that moment, the Qing dynasty remained, but its reformist soul was dead. The death of Emperor Guangxu in the year 1908 remains one of modern China's greatest mysteries. Nearly a century later, forensic studies found arsenic levels in his bones more than 2,000 times above normal, clear evidence of poisoning. Strangely, Empress Dowager Cixi died only 1 day afterward. Historians believe she ordered her nephew's poisoning to ensure the court would not fall into reformist hands after her death. A cold conclusion befitting a woman who lived by the creed, "Power is not given, it must be taken." 20 years after her death, Cixi's tomb was looted by rebel soldiers. Witnesses said that when the coffin was opened, her body remained intact, lips still red, skin still pink, sparking rumors that she had used an elixir of immortality. Though likely due to advanced embalming, the story reinforced the image of the immortal Cixi, a woman who defied nature in both life and death. To the people, it was mystique. To historians, it symbolized the ultimate conservatism of a dynasty refusing to change even at the brink of collapse. In retrospect, Empress Dowager Cixi embodied the final contradiction of Chinese feudal history. Intelligent, sharp, politically farsighted, yet the very force that held back the nation from modernization. She sustained power through psychological finesse and the fear of others, turning the court into a labyrinth of suspicion. By the time she died, the Qing dynasty was only a shadow. A few years later, the Xinhai Revolution erupted, ending more than 2,000 years of monarchy. Cixi was not only the most powerful woman in China, but also the last symbol of palace power. Cold, beautiful, and ruthless, nourished by intrigue, loneliness, and the belief that everything could be controlled except time. And like her sealed tomb, resting in silence, Empress Dowager Cixi remains there still, a monument to buried power, the power of a woman who dared to challenge heaven's mandate itself. As imperial power within the Qing court decayed under the hand of Empress Dowager Cixi, outside the walls of the Forbidden City, China once again fell into the whirlpool of war. If the inner palace was a realm of cold intrigue, the battlefields beyond thundered with drums, neighing horses, and the smoke of gunpowder. An empire that once saw itself as the center of the world now had to face a changing one, where Western guns and warships knocked at its gates, and Chinese generals were forced to defend their nation while bound by a feeble court. Among these battles, the Taiping Rebellion, 1851 to 1864, was the deepest wound, a war of religion, politics, and class, where the blood of tens of millions dyed the Yangtze River red, and where strategy, betrayal, and human tragedy intertwined in a colossal tragic epic. The uprising began with a man named Hong Xiuquan, a failed scholar in the provincial examinations who declared himself the younger brother of Jesus Christ, sent by heaven to cleanse the Manchu demons and establish the heavenly kingdom. Amid a society racked by poverty, corruption, and decay, his call rang like thunder. From Guangxi, thousands of laborers, miners, and peasants rallied to him, raising the banner of the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom and shouting slogans like, "Destroy the Qing, eradicate evil, and found the Heavenly Dynasty." In less than 2 years, they captured Nanjing, renamed it Tianjin, Heavenly Capital, and built their own state, with laws, currency, administration, and even a heavenly feminism in which women could fight and study. Confronted by this storm, the Qing court was paralyzed. Its armies were weak, its generals inept, and entire provinces collapsed. Siqi, then still young and newly rising in influence, had to rely on Han Chinese generals such as Zheng Guofan, Li Hongzhang, and Zhuo Zongtang, men who formed semi-independent militias known as the Xiang Army and Huai Army. This marked a critical turning point. For the first time, military power no longer belonged entirely to the Manchu court, but shifted into the hands of regional commanders, beginning the fragmentation that would last until the end of the 19th century. The battlefields of China then resembled a vast sea of fire. The campaigns at Wuhan, Anqing, and Nanjing were as brutal as any in Europe of that age. Gunpowder smoke hung thick, and Western cannons supplied by the British and French thundered along the Yangtze. The Taiping fought with religious zeal and despair, while the imperial troops fought for honor and survival. Cities were besieged, civilians starved, rivers carried corpses for months. Chinese records counted more than 20 million dead, a staggering toll exceeding that of the First World War in Europe. Amid the smoke, Zheng Guofan emerged as a general who was both scholar and pragmatist. He believed victory required discipline to conquer chaos, morality to counter cruelty. He built the Xiang army through kinship ties, soldiers drawn from the same villages and families, ensuring loyalty. His strategy was encirclement and attrition, advancing slowly but steadily. In each captured city, he established granaries and reopened schools, pacifying while rebuilding. Yet he was ruthless. Whenever Taiping forces resisted, he ordered extermination to eradicate the roots of rebellion. On the other side, Hong Xiuquan drifted ever further from reality. As his power grew, he proclaimed himself the Heavenly King, living in opulence and believing divine spirits would grant him victory. Gradually, the Taiping leadership fractured. Yang Xuqing, Shi Dakai, and Hong Rengan, brilliant commanders, were successively killed or betrayed. What began as a spiritual and humanitarian movement degenerated into a machine of death. When imperial forces under Zheng Guofan and Li Hongzhang closed in on Nanjing in the year 1864, the Taiping army was collapsing. In the end, Nanjing fell and Hong Xiuquan took poison, ending a tragic chapter of Chinese history. But that victory was not salvation. It marked a shift of power from the emperor's hands to those of the provincial generals. Zheng Guofan and Li Hongzhang became the pillars of the dynasty, controlling armies, finances, and diplomacy, while the emperor remained a figurehead. From that point, China entered an era of militarization, whose ultimate result was irreversible weakness before the Qing's fall. The Taiping War, seemingly a civil revolt, in fact shattered the feudal structure of power and opened the path to a new age, one where force, not bloodline, decided the fate of the nation. By the early 20th century, when the gunfire of the Xinhai Revolution echoed, the Qing dynasty collapsed, ending a 2,000-year imperial order. Yet on those battlefields, once soaked in the blood of millions, grass still grows and wind still blows. The nameless soldiers, from imperial troops to Taiping rebels, all returned to the earth, their names forgotten. They are the silent bones of history, erased by emperors, yet truly the ones who wrote its pages in real blood. And in a bitter irony, though the court triumphed, history remembers the rebellion as a final warning. It revealed that when power rots and faith is lost, even the mightiest empire can crumble at the cry of one forsaken man. Those battles are scarcely remembered today, but if one listens closely, along the windswept banks of the Yangtze still echo the distant drums of war. A reminder that every empire, no matter how strong, must one day pay for its arrogance. Chinese history stretches like a vast river, winding through thousands of years of rise and fall. Within that flow, the 5 mysteries we have journeyed through, from the immortal mummy of Xinzhui, the lost civilization of Sanqingdui, the tomb of Qin Shi Huang submerged in a sea of mercury, the disappearance without a trace of Emperor Jianwen, to the cold palace intrigues of Empress Dowager Shichi, are not merely isolated tales. They are 5 mirrors reflecting the deepest nature of humanity, the thirst for power, the belief in immortality, the fear of oblivion, and the pride of spirits that refuse to bow before time. Each mystery is a doorway half opened into the minds of the ancients, where reason and superstition, wisdom and sin coexisted within the body of a magnificent civilization. Looking back, we realize that behind every wonder, every tomb, every victory, there was always a price. Empress Dowager Cixi may have ruled for nearly half a century, yet lived in solitude and suspicion. Qin Shi Huang unified the realm, yet died by the very elixir of immortality he trusted. Emperor Janwen lost his throne and vanished, yet became a symbol of justice, silenced. And figures like Xinjue or Hong Xiuquan, a perfectly preserved corpse, a self-proclaimed prophet, both leave to posterity the same question. Can humankind truly conquer time, or merely delay forgetting? Modern historians now use technology to illuminate the past, decoding mysteries once shrouded in legend. Yet perhaps what keeps these stories alive is not the scientific answers, but the emotions they awaken: awe, fear, and the hunger to understand. Each time a tomb is opened, an artifact unearthed, or a mystery solved, we glimpse ourselves in the mirror of history. Still curious, still ambitious, still afraid of the limits of life. These mysteries, therefore, do not speak only of China, they speak of humanity. In every age, in every land, power longs for permanence, and history never ceases to remind us that no dynasty lasts forever. The mummies will one day decay, the tombs will one day crumble, but the memory of their stories will live on, in chronicles, in legends, and in the eyes of those still curious about the past. For as long as humankind keeps asking questions, history itself has never truly ended. And perhaps that is the greatest mystery of all ages. History does not die. It merely waits for us to find its voice again.